They are the Purple People Eaters. Welcome to 105 Sports, and today I'll be counting down the top 10 Minnesota Vikings of all time. Before we begin, some honorable mentions go out to Ron Yari and Chuck Foreman, who just missed the cut. Number 10, John Randle. This undrafted free agent was known as one of the best trash talkers in the game, getting into heads of opposing quarterbacks for 14 seasons. But what was special about Randle was the fact that he could back it up. While playing with injuries in his first 2 seasons as a starter, Randle managed to rack up 21 sacks. After recovering from the latter, Randle embarked on a streak of 133 consecutive starts and 176 consecutive games played. In 1993, he began another streak of 6 consecutive All-Pro nods and Pro Bowl appearances. This, of course, coming at a time where legendary pass rushers like Reggie White and Bruce Smith were still at the top of their game. Randle has 137.5 career sacks and was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2010. Number 9, Jim Marshall. Let's address the elephant in the room. Marshall's fumble recovery and subsequent 66-yard run in the wrong direction in 1964 is hilarious, but one blunder doesn't define an entire 20-year career. During that time, Marshall managed to make 270 consecutive starts, a mark that would put even John Randle to shame. He also recorded an unofficial 127 quarterback sacks and is one of only 11 players to play in each of the Vikings' 4 Super Bowl appearances. Marshall was also part of the famed Purple People Eaters, which feature players who have all made at least 2 Pro Bowls. His number 70 has been retired by the Vikings, an honor which is not even bestowed on Hall of Famers such as Paul Krause and Ron Yari. And though Marshall isn't in the Hall himself, many in the Vikings family believe he will one day be enshrined for his contribution to the game. Number 8, Mick Tingstad. Yet another Iron Man to make our list. Tingstad started every one of the 240 games during his career. Like Marshall, he started in each of the Vikings' 4 Super Bowl appearances, but unlike Marshall, Tingstad anchored an entire unit to 10 division titles in an 11-year span, while playing in 19 total playoff games and protecting a great scrambling quarterback like Fran Tarkenton. He was named to 6 Pro Bowls and 5 All-Pro teams, and his number 53 has been retired by the franchise. Tingstad was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2015 after 32 years of eligibility. Number 7, Karl Eller. The second Purple People Eater to make this list was taken out of the nearby University of Minnesota in the first round of the 1964 NFL Draft. Eller was known for his massive 6'6", 250-pound frame and unusual quickness, which gave him an edge against opposing tackles. In 1971, he took home NFL Defensive Player of the Year while also making his 3rd Pro Bowl and All-Pro teams. Though sacks were not made an official stat during his career, Eller unofficially recorded 44 sacks between 1975 and 1977. He's the franchise's all-time sack leader, and he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2004. Number 6, Cris Carter. To say Carter began his career troubled would be an understatement. After being taken by the Philadelphia Eagles in the 4th round of the 1987 supplemental draft, Carter had a pair of solid campaigns in 1988 and 89. But due to the constant abuse of drugs and alcohol, head coach Buddy Ryan decided to cut the budding star just before the 1990 season. Carter claims that this move helped turn his life around, and he was quickly claimed off waivers by the Minnesota Vikings, where he proved to be a quality secondary target throughout the early part of the decade. In 1993, Carter had a career year, reaching personal best in both yards and receptions, giving him his first Pro Bowl nod. The following season, Carter led the league with 122 receptions while gaining 1,256 yards, scoring 7 touchdowns, and was voted to his first of 2 All-Pro teams. In 1995, Carter matched his reception mark from the previous season, while also getting a career high in yards with 1,371 and leading the league in touchdowns for the first time with a career high 17 scores. During the late 90s, Carter was a part of some extremely high-powered offenses featuring players like Randall Cunningham and Randy Moss, which helped Minnesota reach the playoffs during the final 4 years of the decade, while he himself led the league in touchdowns in both 1997 and 99. Carter ended his career as the Vikings' all-time leader in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, and he currently populates each of these categories on the league's all-time list as 13th in yards, 5th in receptions, and 4th in career touchdowns. In 2013, Carter was finally inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame after being known as one of the Hall's greatest snubs for several years. Number 5, Randall McDaniel, one of the best athletes to ever play along the offensive line, running a 4.6-second 40-yard dash while recording a 37-inch vertical. McDaniel was immediately named a starter after being taken in the first round of the 1988 NFL Draft. By his second season, McDaniel was being named to his first of 12 straight Pro Bowls, and by his third, he was being named to his first of 7 All-Pro teams. In 1994, McDaniel led the Vikings' offensive line to recording a pass-to-sack ratio of nearly 23-1. In 1996, he used his impeccable athleticism to become the first guard to catch a touchdown pass in the Pro Bowl. In 1998, McDaniel helped the Vikings lead the league in scoring, protecting known scrambler Randall Cunningham and allowing only 1.5 sacks the entire season. In 2009, McDaniel was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Number 4, Adrian Peterson. One of the most consistently great running backs of the last decade, Peterson came out swinging in his rookie season, gaining 1,341 yards and scoring 12 touchdowns while only starting in 9 games. The following season, Peterson led the league with 1,760 yards along with 10 touchdowns while being named to his first of 4 All-Pro teams. In 2009, he led the league with 18 touchdowns while rushing for 1,383 yards. In one of the final games of the 2011 season, Peterson tore both his ACL and MCL, and many questions were raised about his future and path to recovery. And since he had only played in 12 games, this marked the first time in his career he failed to reach 1,000 yards. But incredibly, Peterson fully recovered in 8 months and was able to start the first week of the 2012 season, where he proceeded to go on a historic run, gaining the second most rushing yards in a single season with 2,097, coming just 8 yards short of Eric Dickerson's still untouched record. For this performance, Peterson was named Offensive Player of the Year and League MVP. With his career beginning to wind down, many have begun to reflect on Peterson's legacy as one of the greatest running backs to ever step onto the field, and when the time finally comes, he will no doubt be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Number 3. Allan Page. The leader of the Purple People Eaters is the top defensive player on this list, and like many of his teammates, he managed to have a lot of longevity throughout his career, missing just 3 starts in 16 seasons, while of course helping the Vikings reach the Super Bowl 4 times and starting in 16 playoff games. The thing Page is most famous for is becoming one of only 2 defensive players to win league MVP. He was named to 6 All-Pro teams and 9 Pro Bowls, and unofficially blocked 28 kicks and recorded 148.5 sacks, which will put him at 6th all-time. Page's number 88 is retired by the franchise, and he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1988. Number 2. Randy Moss. Another talented receiver with a troubled beginning, before arriving in Minnesota, Moss was kicked off the Florida State football team after serving jail time for testing positive for marijuana and violating his probation. After attending Marshall for a few years and declaring for the draft, Moss was seen as a highly touted prospect but fell to the Vikings at number 21 due to his off-the-field issues. In his rookie season, Moss led the league with 17 touchdowns and gained 1,313 yards while making his first of 3 All-Pro teams with the Vikings. That season, Minnesota went 15-1 while scoring the most points in NFL history at the time and coming in second in total offense. In 2000, Moss again led the league in touchdowns with 15, marking the 3rd year in a row a Vikings receiver led the league in receiving touchdowns. In 2003, he led the league in touchdowns a 3rd time with 17 while getting a career-high 1,632 yards and catching 111 passes. But the following season, Moss showed a bit of decline, marking career lows in receptions and yards. In the following offseason, Moss was traded to Oakland for a first-round pick and linebacker Napoleon Harris. The thing that puts Moss so high on this list compared to Chris Carter is the fact that he had more production in less time, considering he was just 26 years of age when he was traded. Though he spent about half his career elsewhere, it's worth noting that he is 3rd all-time in yards, 15th in receptions, and 2nd in touchdowns. And the fact that he didn't get to play out his prime in Minnesota puts him at number 2 on this list, and he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2018. Number 1. Fran Tarkenton. This small scrambling quarterback had a rough start during his first stint in Minnesota, only managing 1 winning season in 6 years. In 1967, Tarkenton was traded to the New York Giants in a shocking move by the franchise. After 5 good seasons and 4 Pro Bowls, Tarkenton returned to the Vikings at the age of 32. Now with a stronger team around him, Tarkenton was able to truly come into his own, leading the Vikings to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. However, he failed to take home a single Lombardi trophy. In 1975, Tarkenton had perhaps his best season, leading the league with 25 touchdowns and getting nearly 3,000 yards. Tarkenton retired in 1978 as the game's all-time leader in yards and touchdowns, and though he's been passed up several times on each of those marks, his 32 career rushing touchdowns are still the most of any quarterback in NFL history. A great scrambler and an even better passer who led the franchise to its greatest era, Fran Tarkenton is the greatest Minnesota Viking of all time.